Someone said that when God wants to give you a gift, He wraps it in a problem. We live in time when there are many problems. Financial recession, among others. Many people lost their jobs, and we live in time when we need to save money, look for money. So what are the dangers and opportunities that we will face in the future? And the main question, where do we get our money? My name is Vasil Ostry. We'll talk about financial abyss and should we plan something during the crisis. I'd like to introduce members of our online discussion. We are part of Irpin Bible Church. These are my good friends, and they kindly agreed to share their challenges that they face as well as their families. We have a beautiful lady, Zoya Ilnitska. Welcome. Welcome, Zoya. She is mother to 3 children. She is private entrepreneur, and she's part of missionary committee in our church. We also have Vyacheslav Svyridenko. Welcome, Vyacheslav. Good evening. He has a beautiful daughter. He's consultant. He consults hotel business, and he's also working for a real estate developer in Kyiv, and he just graduated coaching school in Kyiv. He's a coach for entrepreneurs, and he also has been teaching a course of Bible and finance. Great. And also we have Andriy Andreyko. Welcome, Andriy. Hello. He is father to 3 children, private entrepreneur, and the other thing we'd like to tell about Andriy, he's the member of the board of Irpin Christian Gymnasium. It's nice to meet you. You are participants of our discussion, so welcome, online audience. If you have comments or questions, please write your comments to Facebook or YouTube broadcast. So the question, we are gathered to know, where do we get our money? Andriy, seriously, where do you get your money? At this time, no money, but you hold on. This is a classic quote from politicians. But everything will be okay. During time of pandemics, crisis, people feel like this is the end. But I personally feel like everything will be all right. It will be a different all right from before, but we often imagine one thing and reality is different. I believe that this time, just like you say, is time of testing, but it will bring us very, very positive results to anyone who would like to see those results. I love your optimism. Great. Zoya and Vyacheslav, what do you think? Where do we get our money? This situation, I think, can be similar to a person who gets in the car to enjoy his travel, and then on the road, they find that they are out of gas in the middle of the field. So where do we get this fuel in the field? Did you have that in your history, Zoya? No, I didn't. But imagine you ran out of fuel and you cannot drive to the next gas station. You have no reserves. So the only thing you can do is ask other people to help. But if such situations happen to us, this is a good moment for us, good reason to make some conclusions and plan ahead, so this situation does not repeat. And for many of us, this situation is given so that we would never get into such situation again. We'll talk about conclusions later, thank you. But Vyacheslav, where do we get our money? Work, for sure. That's where money comes from work. Look for someone who needs you, who can pay for your work, because work, according to the Bible, is a main source of income for any family, any person, any member of the church or citizen of Ukraine. So if you lost job, just keep looking for new jobs. Search the market. Find something to do. Thank you. Let's talk about family budget. Over last month and a half, how did your family budget change? Did you change any expenditures, articles of expense, or everything remains the same? Zoya, your mother. Who leads the budget, you or Roman in your family? We're doing it together, of course. But why did we not get into such situation before? We were very serious about finance all our marriage. We have been married for 23 years, and 1 year after we got married, even before computers, I was writing our expenditures in the notebook. And then I got my first computer, Excel. You mean budget, expenditures and incomes? Yes. And that makes us more wise if compared to when we are chaotic about expenditures. Our challenges for today. We don't have any income. Not at all. No income. For the last 1.5, maybe almost 2 months, no income. Because these quarantine attitudes started. My area of activity, real estate, that is connected to huge expenditures, was stalled by fear, because people can buy bread and milk all the time, but big shopping is always put on pause. So there is pause for our income as well. How did your budget change? Of course, this is a challenge, but I will not say anything new. That at this time, we just need to cut all expenditures to maximum. There is a saying, the rich person is not the one who earns much, but who spends little. But I would say rich people are those who do not waste money, because some expenditures are necessary, some are waste. You have Excel documents, so you're not wasting anything. No, we are not. This is our long habit to plan our costs. So nothing changed for us, because we have not been wasting money before and we are not now. But this situation would help people understand what they should not do. For example, if people spend a lot of money in the malls, now they cannot do that. If you can save by exercising at home, not going to fitness center, this is what you can do, because you don't have alternative. And all other extra opportunities, like you cannot go to restaurant, you cannot go elsewhere. This way of life today, a crisis in itself. There are different crises, but this one shows that right here, this is where you can say, these things you can do, this maybe not. So the recession tells us what costs should be cut down naturally. Thank you. Andriy, have your budget articles changed? You know, Vasil, I'd like to add to what Zoya said. I think that, of course, to answer your question briefly and clearly, the budget did change a bit. But in my family, everything happens naturally. If person gets sick, and we see this sickness in society, total, universal disease. Everyone was sick at some point. I was. So your body switches off everything that is at periphery. Things at periphery are not working 100% like before, but to some little degree. Why did God envision this kind of change? so that the body would survive, so that main functions of the body, main organs, could receive sufficient oxygen, sufficient blood, and so on. Similar things are happening with the budget. We have reviewed and sifted all our expenditures. We are focused on the main issues: food, housing, utility, transportation. I have a vehicle, but even that kind of transportation is cut to the minimum. That's it. I cannot boast, like Zoya, that I register every expense. When I served as interpreter before, and I talked to Germans a lot, and one German told me, "Andriy, I'm 55. I can tell you what we ate for breakfast." On the second day after marriage, he pulls out a book and he looks for the right book. I cannot do that. There is a program that I use, but it's very primitive compared to Zoya or compared to Germans. Vyacheslav, how did your budget change? I agree with Andriy and Zoya that your budget is changed naturally. Whatever is necessary is spent. What is not necessary, you cannot even get there. It's all closed. But as we were teaching Crown Financial Ministries, there is a phone app that can register your expenses, and it would help you. Accounting is necessary to everyone. As I look at my family budget, I notice that we are spending more money for food. I don't know. Maybe because of fear that for the first 2 weeks that we'd run out of food. People were in panic. They would not let you in or out, and I look at my expenditures. This month, I can say for sure, we spent more for food than before. But that's the main part of the expenditures in social organism, the society. But what has changed? We started eating more because we are buying more? No, I think it's the situation that shows how much we are dependent on other people. Because in the past, people lived in a farm and they have grown their own food. And they were not dependent on market or supermarket, but now we are dependent much more. And that's why we spend more. Okay? Then, talking about family budget, let's close this part of our discussion. How shall your family budget look for next 6 months, maybe 12 months? We don't need to spend money on holiday because it's not important anymore to travel as a family. A gym can be cut off. What else can be cut? Coffee in the street? Yes? No? What's your recommendation? What would you suggest? Just like I said, things were cut off naturally now, but quarantine will finish in a week or two. Maybe income will come then. Everything will be great, just like I said. But what I can say right now, for the moment of situation as of today, because we don't know if quarantine will end on 11th of May or it will be continued. We need to make sure that food expenses are not more than before. Now, all restaurants are delivering food to home. And people aren't going to restaurant, but they are asking restaurant to deliver. And so as a mother, as a person who tries to save, I invite all ladies to cook at home because it will be 20-30% of what you're usually spending for delivery of meals. Of course, it's advertised and restaurants have changed to deliver, but we want to save. So we can serve our families, but also we can save the healthy balance. In your experience, how much food should you save ahead? Store ahead. Andriy, Vyacheslav, Zoya. I spoke to my friends, I'll tell you. They come from Lugansk. They have moved to here in 2014. One lives in Kyiv, one lives in Cherkasy. And I called one in first 2 weeks of quarantine, and I called the second. I asked, how are you doing? Do you have food? Do you have enough for children? And they replied, we have enough. We have lived through this situation, and so when the war started. So I know it will be 1 cup of grain to prepare oatmeal or other cereal, and so I have bought enough grain for 6 months. So should we store ahead or not? Remember your childhood. We have lived through this. We have had crises one after the other. We had less, maybe, crisis, or it would grow or it would diminish, but we are always in recession. The war at Donbass was changed to stable stage. And it didn't touch us in Kiev region physically, but psychologically, the way we accept information and emotionally, that was suffering to everyone, especially to those displaced. But when the war was moved to stability, it's bad stability, but it was stability. Now we lost stability again. 1990s, do you remember? A huge bag of sugar, huge bag of flour, a lot of preserves, bags of potatoes. I remember living in a small town, and we would preserve food over the summer and then eat during the winter. That was our life. Zoya, are you making food storage? I'm a very specific person in this regard. First, I'm still a child of Soviet times, and this childhood was not very well fed, so I've been saving all my life. So when we got more money, we'll talk about this some more, I found ways of spending money, but not for food, and not into just household things. So I have not changed my spending habits, and I always knew that my friends always know that my family stores for 2 months ahead. That was always, since my childhood maybe. I always have storage for 2 months ahead. From that Soviet memories, right? Maybe genes, I don't know. And I have kept this habit even in recent years, not to spend much time shopping. Would always go to the store, buy a lot, and save, and store. And we always had enough food. And when quarantine was announced, and everyone went to the store to buy something, and my husband says, let me go and buy something. And I told him, well, we have everything already. We don't have enough money, but we have enough food stored. Okay, let's talk about business and work. Vyacheslav, you consult hotel business. And you're also coach, trainer. This is a period of opportunities. Is this crisis a period of opportunity? Should we risk at this time? Invest some money, look for opportunities of some investment into some new activities. Well, first, before you make any decision, you should have peace in your heart. Crisis really irritates people emotionally. People start moving one way or the other, changing profession or thinking about change, thinking about new studies. So first, we need to find peace and gain some optimism. I'm concerned when people in the beginning of the crisis decided to read all the books and decided to learn all things they were hoping to learn. But survey shows that lasted for 3 days. Why? Because everyone was sad. They don't see the future, and everything stops. So whatever they change now, things will remain the same. First, you need to change on the inside. You need to find peace and future for yourself. So what helps me? It's faith. For a believer should be optimist. Whatever goes wrong, we have vision that things will be better, just like Andriy said. Or if things go worse, then it's fulfillment of the prophecy of Christ. The last times will end and will be with God. These are unique times when huge changes would happen. We are optimistic one way or the other. That's faith. Second, I get help from the church. All those people who are in different messengers, in Viber, in Telegram, in other chats, thank you for your encouragement. But third, you should not lose your main vocation, your calling in life. Many people forget what's the purpose of their life. I'm active participant of a Christian business community called Leader Impact, and we read this book together, Strategy for Life. We need to know where we are going, and all other things should not impact us much. Crisis should return us to our purpose. I'd like to read from chat, from YouTube. Thank you for your questions, friends. David Vyacheslav is asking, should a family plan renovation of their apartment to move in because we are renting now and we are wasting money for the rent. So should we borrow some money and repair and move in? There is clarification. They have an apartment and they have 40% for renovation. You're all part of construction business one way or the other. What would you advise? If I was at the place of David, I would for sure decide that I need to move into my apartment immediately. I'm renting an apartment right now. I pay someone. I better borrow something, and I would make the repairs. I would move in, and I would pay off the debt, and I would pay myself. In majority of countries, own home is the foundation. And in Ukraine, where you don't have stability, you have no guarantee renting all your life. My home is my fortress, that's what we say. But question is clear. But clarification is, I think they have 40% for their apartment. Let's say 2-room apartment. To move in, if there is no renovation, so I think it would be $10,000 for fixing a 2-room apartment. To move in, to cover the walls, the floor, the ceiling. The question is, should they borrow? Is it smart to borrow a huge amount of money during crisis? They're still paying, you see? They're paying some amount for their rent. They give money away every month. If they have 40%, that means that they can do 40% of an apartment. If it's 30 meters, 30 square meters, then that's too little. But if the apartment is bigger, then they can fix the kitchen, they can fix the toilet and bath. Okay, is it okay to borrow from the bank? Would you borrow from the bank? You have 40% to move in. Overall, I'll tell you, Debt is very slick topic. I will not give recommendations here. Would you do it? Would you do that? There are many factors and circumstances that would impact my decision. You understand? If it was vital for my family to live in an apartment, I would borrow in hryvnias, not in foreign currency. So, why would you borrow? What should help you decide to borrow or not to borrow? If it would decrease her costs in the near future, today it looks like borrowing, but in the future it looks like profit. Because what you don't give to owner of the apartment, you earned, you have put into your family. The question is about amounts, schedules, and ability to pay. Your personal solvency. But overall, this is not spending into second apartment, which is investment. It's not buying a new vehicle when you can still drive the old one. It's not buying a tour to Egypt. This is a basic thing. For me, this is understanding that this is a basic thing. I would do it, and I would recommend for that to be done. Thank you. We'll continue the question of business and work. Zoya, you lost profit for last month and a half. And many people have lost. But you're a bright representative of a huge number of people. Have you thought about additional income, changing your profession? And if yes, then what? Because at time of instability, should people change their profession? Additional income is good, and it's natural for people to think about it. If a person has some opportunity to do something else, they should consider, for sure. For me personally, I don't see such a perspective. So, I like this question of yours. Do I think about changing profession? Because as I listen to forecasts, there are different outlooks. Some people say everything will stop for a long time. There are people of different opinions. I personally think that changing profession should happen not because of crisis or not crisis. This is just a good time to understand, is this my profession at all? To consider your calling. Because sometimes people do something just in case. And so, this is a good moment to think about something else. What's my profession? It's something that I can do, something that I can be successful at, and things that would give me pleasure, and it would give satisfaction to people who use my service and buy my good. So, if this is something that I like and something that I'm called to do, I don't think I should change it. I should understand whether someone would need this profession in the future. That's another point. Crisis or not, I think every person, especially a young person, that are still in the beginning of their path, everybody is thinking what to do. Think this is good moment to consider some economic studies. The world changes every 5 to 10 years, and now faster than before. Some professions move away, some stay as needed. So this must be considered as well. But I know for sure that if I know for sure that this profession would be needed, crisis will come and go. Life would equalize. And if I know that this is my profession for sure, then the third question is for unique business proposal. For every profession, for every work, for every business, this should happen. If the world changes, when the world changes, then after the crisis, certain professions might grow unnecessary, and some new professions would come in. Someone can invent a new product during crisis. Someone would change their service, like delivery of food. Someone worked offline and they moved online. So the business adjusts. They can add some options. They can make their service more accessible at this time. And this urbanization of their service could happen. Someone is investing in their development. Like, my work is a service, is not a product. And I know it would be needed to people for 100%. If my service is given at high quality, if I serve in a new way, I'm not moving to another profession, I'm not changing jobs, I just invest into myself, I develop myself to be ready. Investing into studies. Vyacheslav, Andriy, what do you think? Is it good time to invest into development? Some seminars are free, some require payment. So is it wise to spend money on some seminars if you don't have income? Vyacheslav, are you going through some trainings now that you pay for? Well, I have some money saved for investment. If I something worthwhile, then I would, because spending into my growth is investment to be better after the crisis. But I don't see anything that I should pay for right now. I pay for the books and I keep reading. I'd like to add to what Vyacheslav said. Here's my thought. Economy is a surprising thing. We say crisis, crisis, but Vasya increased food costs. And if things have decreased from Vasily, they have increased somewhere else. The money does not evaporate. They remain in turnover. They just move from one place to the other. That's what I noticed. During the time of quarantine, beginning with large companies and going lower, people who provide services, they made education accessible. Understanding that people do not have enough profit anymore, they started to provide teaching in a cheaper way. Or owners of premises started to give discounts or delays to those who rent from them, because if you lose someone renting from you, then you don't get income at all. As long as, like Slavik said, you have this will to study. Quarantine does not change your habits. You just need to force yourself to go through training. Prometheus and other training courses. Nikon, for example, started teaching free of charge how to do landscape filming or using color. The courses they used to charge for now are free. Eduard Borisov is asking, should we invest right now? And if investing is good, then where? I have gone through recession 2008. I remember things in my personal experience, not just from hearsay. I have experienced this seriously myself. In crisis 2008, I started it with serious debts, dollar debts. So the first stage was like with disease. First denial, then depression, then realization, and then movement forward, slowly but steadily. So now things repeat themselves. Smaller now than 2008, but we don't know the final outlook. Investing or not is a decision of every person, but crisis is a time of investment opportunities. But you need to clearly understand that eggs should be put in different baskets. You need to understand that basic needs are necessary. You need to have secure housing. You need to have enough money for renting 6 months ahead at least for food, for health, and only after you have more money, then invest into something that is close to you. When I think about investment, I think about real estate because that's something very close to me. Your son sends you greetings, Andriy. Hey, Andriy, hello. Okay, we move to the next topic. I read this quote from Lina Kostenko. It's interesting that colibri bird has heart much bigger than the stomach, and humans should have such attitude themselves. Think about the heart issues more than about stomach issues. So, for the first days, we had this shock, and that's natural reaction of many people focusing on yourself, on your family. But very often, if we unpack this quote, Lina Kostenko says, we are directed by our stomach. But for this hummingbird, the heart is 3 times bigger than the stomach. Maybe we should change correlation of our organs. Think about charity, ministry, missions work. So, is it worth doing charity during economic crisis? That's my private issue, not for some organization, because each of us is involved into the charity of our church, our community, and we do a lot of kind work, but there are some individual projects that we have. So, have you thought about this? Shall we cut down those costs or not? The charity costs. Zoya, let's start with you. It's a surprising question. Doing charity or not is a surprising question because for me it's like, should I wake up in the morning? Should I open my eyes? Should I keep breathing? Because doing good works is just like that. Any Christian should do good, not emotionally, not just once in your life, but doing it daily, just like eating. That should be a need to help someone. That's a minimum program, of course. But that maximum program is what Bible describes things you do for joy. Because if charity gives you joy, then we can focus on it. Because we cannot get joy from traveling, from holiday or recreation today. But you can get joy from helping people. If this gives you a lot of joy, just do it. Quarantine will not lock you. Thank you, Zoya. Vyacheslav, I know that for a long time you've been missionary to Nepal, 4 years. As I speak to you, I know that your heart is on fire for missions and you're part of church mission committee and you'd like to go back to Nepal. You have those plans. So tell us, during this recession, economic recession, is it correct or not? Have you thought about these external circumstances? Will they be barrier for you to go on mission? Crisis will or could develop in a way that there will be barriers for traveling out. Like you would need certificate that you're not sick, that you have immunization. But we as a church, and me personally, we need to review our priorities. If any organization has priorities, so look at that their budget and you will see their priorities. You want to see the church's priority, then look at their budget. If their main expense is the church building, then they serve the building. In Irpin Bible Church, charity is part of the missions committee, and that encourages me. So as we look at the church budget, the church would decide that we are called to do one thing: share the gospel with all people. So outreach, evangelism should be number one in the budget. Local outreach and mission throughout the world. So with limited time, I think people will invest more into what's necessary. More so, if I understand this correctly, from our private discussions, you're now building your business in a way that would ensure your mission, right? I have certain percentage that I put off to the ministry. So whether it would grow or not, it depends on my income, but also have investment. In Carpathian, there is a brother who builds a hotel, and I'm helping him with my competencies, and I also invest some of my money there. I look for investors, and I find some despite the crisis, and I hope that this business will cover some of future missions costs. When there is desire, God opens opportunities. But this is a philosophic change or change of thinking. We are directed not by our stomach. We earn money not just to provide our daily needs for our family. Of course, that's necessary, but we are moved by something bigger, the mission. That's what we'll talk about. Zoya said that's natural. Vyacheslav is building his business in a way that in 2 years, you want to move to Nepal in 2 years. God willing, yes. Andriy, I know you're a member of supervisory board of European Christian Gymnasium. You invest a lot, you sacrifice a lot, you donate. Because investment is getting something back, but donation is when you give without return, and you invest into children, the school, the kindergarten. So tell me, have you considered this approach during the crisis? Have you thought about this overall? Crisis and donations. First of all, I'll tell you, I agree with both speakers. I believe that charity or giving or serving is important. Always. It's not just for the church. Social activity is not just like there was a flash mob on Facebook driving the doctors. No, you don't do it just once. You do it always to help people. And not just financially. Helping with time, helping with your dedication, certain work. I remember German friends that I worked with, they told me that great works are not done by great people. They're done by normal people who give a small amount of money that they can afford, but they have dedicated part of their property or that part of their income to certain work. And I believe that giving is a must. That's part of our being. About children, I'll tell you. Children are children of God. And we have many children in Irpin region. So I hope, I'm sure, this priority will remain for me. And some of our viewers might be interested to keep investing into children. We have huge demand in learning. We have statistics, how many schools of early development we have, and we need any kind of training and schooling is in demand. Our gymnasium teaches children according to normal school program, but also raising children with Christian values. And whatever crisis we have, we could invest. Even if I don't have any money, I can invest time. I'm teacher by my training, a teacher of English, and I know German, so I can teach if I do not have any money. You're part of initiative team that would like to open an obelisk in Irpin. What's that? What's this project? Several years ago, we have this group of private persons that had an idea to build in a place that would be allowed by community to build a monument about basic values that we live by. Our country is Christian. Our president, when he becomes president, he gives oath on the Bible. And we are part of implementing this dream to put a monument to 10 commandments in commandments of Jesus Christ. Love God and love your neighbor. This is a great thing, in my opinion, that will silently remind many people that will see that about basic values that our people grow with. During crisis, should you invest into such project? Or maybe it should be frozen until the better times come? What do you think? Well, this project was intended many years ago, and majority of the work is already done. I did not have any questions back then. My friends have agreed with me. I'm not alone there. I'm only part of the team. So we didn't have any questions like that. But again, if we're talking whether it's timely or not, if it's basic need or not, it's issue of completing what you started. We started, we will complete. But the basic values are more important now than ever before. Now we have time to think about direction. If you know 10 commandments, then you need to read through them, to consider them, the commandments of Jesus Christ, and start applying them in your life. This is good foundation. After the crisis, maybe new realities to build new life. Great. I have a question in the chat. Thank you, friends, for writing this in the chat. And thank you for asking your question. Sometimes believers are saying that you should live one day at a time, not to save any money. Is it correct? Vyacheslav, you were teaching the course, Bible and Finance. What does Bible tell about finance? And where does this notion come, living one day? People are confused about this phrase of Christ. Don't worry about tomorrow, and they translate don't worry as don't do anything for tomorrow. And that is not true, because tomorrow we get what we have invested in today. Bible teaches us to plan time and finances properly. And so, just one Bible verse. Look at this ant, because ant prepares now for the winter. You need to read Bible more carefully. That's one. Second, make the good planning and ask God's blessing, because people plan sometimes but without blessing of God. Do you remember this phrase of Martin Luther? If I knew that I'm dying tomorrow, then today I would still be doing what I have planned, like planting a tree or something. You live like you live only one day, but plan like you're planning for eternity. Slavik, director, said, if we have scheduled our wedding for September, should things happen without change? I had a relative with their marriage, their wedding couple weeks ago, they had 8 people or 9 in their marriages sanctified by God. It's not the question of wedding or holiday. The more I think about it, the more I consider that this crisis is given to us so that we would be shaken a bit to drop unnecessary things. I visited a business training some time ago, and we had a game. For example, we had to count, to list all our financial dreams, like travel all over the world, or car that would cost $1 million, or house, or training children abroad, financial dreams, and then calculate how much you earn every month, and then calculate the cost of your dreams, and let's see how many years you need to earn for all these dreams. When I calculated all my dreams, even the most basic, not fantastic. That's what I want to say. What kind of dreams we should have. I have calculated my dreams. I calculate my income, how much I save to put off, and I can realize all these dreams in 10 years. People who were around the table with me who played the same game, they calculated. They did not know what kind of numbers that would be. And they first thought 156 years the person had to work to implement those dreams. Someone had 220 years. So why would you have that? That's too much. That's extra. People want things they don't need for happiness. And physically, it's impossible to reach. So, that's the question. We just need to reconsider our must-haves. We need to purify our dreams. Everything will be great. You need to have marriage. You need to have wedding. You need to have holiday. You need to have tasty food. Do everything you need for high-quality, happy life. But throw away the extras. That's where we concluded. There will be always people whose life is more difficult than ours. In some cases, we need to help financially. In some cases, we need to invest in the missions. We need to follow different priorities. That's very important. That each of us would have this change. That we would plan something that would be very important for us to help other people. I'd like to read some text from the Bible. Matthew 6:19 says, "Don't save your treasures on earth, where those treasures would be stolen or rotten or rusted. Save your treasures in heaven, where your treasures will be preserved, and your heart will be wherever your treasure is." We are in a Christian community. We follow the values of the Bible. We follow the mission and calling from the Bible, and that's our essence. So, let's come to a conclusion. We have talked for 55 minutes already. Time is running. Thank you, friends, for being with us. Thank you for writing comments and asking questions. So, let's come to some conclusions. You can look at any problem as a challenge or opportunity to change. Andriy started with optimism, and he said, the crisis will be over, everything will be great. Super. Let's believe in that. But what conclusions should come with this crisis? Pandemics throughout the world. Flights are closed. Travel is closed. We have economic recession, financial abyss. People lose jobs. So when everything is over, what would be our conclusions? Andriy, would you like to say something? You know, each person already made some conclusions. Each person. What are yours? I can say one thing. I wish everyone to remember this feeling right now, that we don't need much for happiness. We don't need everything for happiness that advertising tells us we must have. Happiness and joy are very close. In business, we lose sight of what's important. When you turn around, when you spin too fast, you don't see things like they are. Just walk slowly from here to downtown Irpin, and you'll see beautiful things. It will be like masterpieces, and the main things will remain in your mind. I hope these feelings will remain with us after the recession. I made some conclusions already, but some practical advice I'd like to share. Get some financial training from the Bible. I have gone through all kinds of training in small group Bible study in our women's group. How do you survive until the end of the month? So that is a book by a famous Christian. And we have gone through this training, and it was an outreach group, and many people who have gone through the training stayed in the church because we started with finance, but we talked about other things. So I advise you to do that. That's very beneficial. We need to understand that God owns not 10% or 15% that we give Him. He owns everything, and He gives us everything. And if He sees that whatever He's given us we use properly, then He can give us more. We all want to have more money, but first change your mind, change your heart, change your attitude to money, and this might happen. You need to be good steward of whatever God has given you. And then get some joy from giving. Real joy. This should be some work. It is not just given. I remember my childhood, and it was not well-off childhood. My first feeling in the childhood was, I need to eat first. I need to have enough for myself first. And God changed that through His testing, through His training. I'm happy to have more tests, more difficulties, because it's a new lesson. That's some new step forward to Him, new step with Him. Just like I said in the beginning, if God prepared a gift, He wraps it into a problem. So the bigger problem, the bigger the gift. Vyacheslav, what do you conclude? What is your advice of this crisis? Thank you, Zoya, for this direct recommendation that you need to study biblical finances, because Bible speaks a lot about finance. Money can compete with God. If a person focuses on finances only, that is idolatry. So there should be proper finance and proper attitude to finance. Thank you. Then one person told me on the second week of quarantine, he said, I lived through many crises, and I'm not afraid of new crises. What I'm afraid of is after crisis is finished, I would remain unchanged. And that touched me. I need to reassess what's important for me, where I am going in my life, what I want to achieve for me, for the Lord. And so this quarantine became, for me, to a certain degree, a movement in my faith, in my optimism. So quarantine does not scare me. it gives me opportunity for growth. So I wish you to find things to grow. Thank you, friends, for your time, for your participation, for your practical advice. I thank you for speaking such direct words and simple words. We live in financial recession, but as quarantine showed, we have this crisis of meanings. That's what we found out. So, I support the good advice from our participants, but also I would like to advise to reevaluate our priorities. Financial recession begins and finishes. We don't have money today, but we might earn money tomorrow. But when we lose the meaning of our life, that crisis is much more difficult. So let's treasure our hearts. Let's watch our hearts. God bless you to go into the Bible to understand finance as well as other things. Thank you for being with us, and God's peace be with you.